I need to make some changes to my model based on the changes I've made to my AutoCAD drawing file. And if I look at my drawing file, it's sitting here, right there. And let me just go ahead and move that out of the way for a moment. I'm just going to move out here so we can all see it. And this is what I have. Like I said, it's changed, and I'll go ahead and take advantage of some of those changes. And I'm going to try something here for my elevations. Because I finalized the elevation, if I go back to my drawing here, what I will do is take this drawing file and bring it into SketchUp so that I can use it as a template. And I know that when I bring the drawing file in, it has 2 elevations and 1 section. I'm aware of that. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and save it. And then I'll go back to SketchUp. And in this model, what I'd like to do is go ahead and click on File, and go ahead and import. And I'm going to look for my drawing file. I'll go ahead and import. I click on close after I see the import results. And there it is. This is the elevation, front elevation, my side elevation, and the section. And I'll go ahead and move that out of the way like this. And notice how it brings it in flat. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take that elevation and stand it up. And looking at my model, I need to use my rotate tool. I'll go over here and click on rotate. I need to rotate this drawing file about the red axis. I'm going to tap the right arrow key to get the red axis. And then I'll click right here at this point, and then it's laying flat. So I go ahead and click on that opposite point here, and I see that it's constrained to the green axis, which is fine. Click there one time, and then I'd like to rotate it and stand it up like this. And I want it to constrain to the blue axis. So once I see it constrained, and it tells me on screen that it says on blue axis, I go ahead and click. I'll use my space bar, get back to my selection tool, and now I can view this and place it at the proper location. I'm going to type M, and I know that this corner right here, I'll just go ahead and zoom in and pick that intersection, and I'll move it over so that it lines up with this intersection like that. And now I can see that my building is a little bit higher than it should be. And that's fine. I'll take care of that in just a bit. I'm also noticing that the window is going to need some corrections here. I want to make sure that I just pick the window. So I will try to window the window like that. And I'll type M, and I'll simply move it out along my green axis here. And I usually type an exact distance. That way, when I go to put it back, I just stick to that exact distance. Right now, it looks like it's coming out 9 feet and then some. So I'm just going to round it and go 10 feet and enter. I moved the window out of the way. Now, I could have hidden the window. That was another option, but I chose not to. And now from here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to generate that opening using this elevation. What I'm going to do is run some interference here. If you don't have it open, go ahead. It's the solids tool. Give it a right click up on the menu there and make sure that you turn it on right here. So I'm going to use solids tools. And here's what I'm going to do. Nothing is selected. I'll go ahead and draw a rectangle, and I'll simply draw the rectangle right here. And then I'm going to pull that rectangle. Now, if I bring it out here, you can see it. If I move it through, you can also see it, but it's stopping right there on that face. And if I keep moving my cursor, I can actually make it come all the way through. So I'll bring it through right about there. And then what I'm going to do is tap my space bar. And if the space bar is not working for whatever reason, I'm going to go click on select. There we go. And then give this a triple click. And then right click it and make a group. And now, because I'm going to do what's called a subtraction, I want to make sure that I subtract all of it I'm just going to move it out a little bit. So I'm going to type M and just bring it out like this and make sure it locks into my green axis as I look at my drawing. So it's going right through like that. Now that I've done that, go ahead and tap my space bar, click off of that solid, and here I go. Using my solid tools, I'd like to select subtract, and it tells me that it's going to subtract the first solid from the second solid. It's going to keep only the results in the model. Hovering over it again, subtract the first from the second. I'll click on it, subtract, select the first solid. If I hover over it, I can see that it's referring to that as my solid number 1. So I click on it. And now I'm prompted to select the second solid. If I move over here, it should pick this solid. Now let's see if it'll do it. Now it tells me it's not a solid, and this is great. A good learning experience for me and for all of you. So I'll click on it. It tells me no, not a solid. So something's going on with my building that it doesn't recognize it as a solid. It should have worked. And let me just do this on the side for all of you, just to prove my point. Okay, I'm going to draw something here that represents a wall, and then I'm going to pull that wall up like this, triple click it, right click, make a group. And then I'm going to move this. In fact, I'm actually going to make a copy of it. So Control, keep bringing it through like that. There we go. This should work here. I'll show you how this works. Subtract. This is my first solid. And then this is my second solid. And when I click on it, it gives me the opening. And the first solid is gone. It should always work, but sometimes it does not. And here's why. When I draw a rectangle like this, and then I pull that up, when I give it a triple click, and then I right click it and make a group, right away, if I look at my entity info, it tells me that it has a volume. Once I see that, then I know that this is a solid. But now watch this. I'm going to zoom in here. Real close, even closer. I'm going to triple click, and I'm going to draw a line from that edge to that edge. And then go back to my select tool, and I'm going to click on that small surface and delete. And then I'm going to move away from my solid. I'm going to click off of it and zoom out. You don't see the opening there, do you? There's a little gap there. I got a little too close there. There's the gap. And as I move away, you still can't see it. And now when I click on that, what I believe to be a solid, notice it does not give me a volume because I took away that little bit of a corner. So there's an imperfection to my solid. I'm not saying that's what happened because I never cut anything out, but I'm trying to show you how it just takes a slight difference in the model in that solid to not recognize it as having a volume. And then if it's not a solid, if it doesn't have volume, then I cannot use my solid tools on it. Keep that in mind. What I'm going to do now is simply delete that solid, which it wasn't anymore because it didn't have volume. Take this one, also delete, and then come over here and take a look at my building and see what might be going on. What I'd like to do is double click, and I'm going to come over here to view, component edit, and I'm going to hide the rest of the model. I'm just going to take a look at it and see if there's anything going on. Now, does this affect it at all? I don't know. But I'm going to clean that up. I'm simply going to erase. So I use my E key, and I'm just going to erase all of this because I don't know if that has anything to do with it. So I'm cleaning my drawing up here, go to the bottom, erase this line, and then that one. Looking at it, studying it. I don't know. And I won't know until I go back to my select tool, click off of it, and now click on it. And it still does not have a volume. So something is going on with my model. Something else I've tried before is to double click it and then triple click like this and just take a look at that. And I don't see anything going on with it. Let me click once away from it. And then I've tried this before where I will take one line like that and delete it. And notice what it does. And then I'll come back in and draw a line. I'll type L from that endpoint over to that endpoint. Tap my escape key, tap spacebar, click on this surface and delete it. Click off of it and then select it again. And it's still a group, but it doesn't have a volume to it. What do I do? How can I fix this? I'll show you. I'm going to double click it again. And then I'm going to do the following. So a quick fix is this. I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to take it from this endpoint over to that endpoint. Let it lock in. No, it didn't take it. Okay, let's try it to that one. And then I'm going to come over here and draw a rectangle from here to there. And then use my space bar, select that surface, delete it, and then type P and take this surface all the way down. And now it's not letting me go past that distance, which is interesting. So let me try this again. Oh, there's a set of lines over there. That might be the culprit. I don't know. Let me pause. Instead, let me tap the escape key, not push pull that, and erase all of the extra lines here. Let me also go to my X-ray mode, and I have a couple of extra lines. Let me delete those. Okay. Turn off the X-ray mode. I don't know if that fixed it, but let me click off of it and then click on it. Now I have a volume. Had to be the lines that were in there. For whatever reason, I was actually going to delete that part of the wall and then redraw it, but I don't have to anymore. Double click and then come over here and erase this segment. Over here, erase this segment. Use the space bar. That's my select tool. Click off of it. Click on it. And there we go. Volume. That's what I need to see. Now I know that it's definitely a solid and it's going to work with my solid tools. Give that a try again. Click on subtract. This is the first solid. This is the one I want to take out. The second solid is the one I want to keep. So I click on that and now it worked. And that's exactly what I wanted to happen. I will now go ahead and try. Let me go to my select tool. I don't need to see my elevation currently. I can hide it, or I can go over to my tags, find the tags and turn them off like this. That could work. There's some more tags in there. Oh, let me click on name. And that way it's going to put them in the correct order. I can do that. I can leave them all on. And then simply take my elevation and move it away. And I'll constrain, this one's going to be on green. I'll move it away an exact distance so I can bring it back an exact distance. So I'm going to say 20 feet. So I've just moved it away 20 feet, but it still lines up. A couple of options there. Pick the one that's best for you. Click off of it. And now I can focus on my window opening. I can take this window opening and place it back here and modify it. Let me show you how I would do that. It's selected. I type M for move. I'll take this corner and just place it right there on that corner, if it'll snap to it. And now it's a matter of basically moving this information over. What I'll do, back to the select tool, and I want to turn on X-ray mode. And I know that I'm seeing through a lot here, so I'm being really careful. I'd like to fix the frame, so I'm going to give that a double click. And when I double click it, I realize that everything is now hidden from view. So I go back to my view. When I go to component edit, I do not want to hide rest of model, so uncheck that. And now I'll position my view in such a way here that I can now take my cursor and window all of the lines here. Let's see, give that a double click. Oh, that's right. It's a group within a group. So I have to double click so I can edit the window. There we go. Now let me click off of it one time. There it is. Give it a double click. And now I window all of this and see how it picked all of the lines there. With all of the lines picked and those surfaces, I can now come in here, position my view in such a way that I'm not going to have lines overlapping, and I can type M, and I can move this endpoint over here. And then I can come down this way. Let's see, go back to my select tool, window the bottom here, and now zoom in and move this endpoint straight down to that endpoint. And that gives me the frame that I wanted. I have to adjust the glass, so let me do that. So I'll go back to my select tool, click once off of this group, and then click on the glass, and then give that a double click. And now the same thing, positioning my view in such a way that it will allow me to window just the lines and the surface on that side. Bring it in over here. Angle it in such a way that it allows me to see things better. Type M, and I'd like to move this endpoint right here straight across. And yes, constrain to red. So I'm going to tap my right arrow key, take it all the way over until it is constrained on line from point right there. Give that a click. And then I'll go to the bottom, go to my select tool, window the bottom area here, and then move from this endpoint straight down. So I want to constrain to blue axis. So I use my up arrow key and let that constrain to the bottom of the frame right there. And it looks like I did something on my keyboard while I was trying to constrain. Let me undo that and try again because, oh, I see. I accidentally tapped control. I don't want that. So let me undo copy and do this again. So windowing all of this. And I'll go ahead and move this bottom straight down. I went to hold down the shift key so that I could pan down, and I accidentally tapped the control key. That's on me. Okay. Angle this in such a way that I can see the lines that I want to snap to. If you wanted to right now, you can even switch this over to hidden line. And that's a little bit easier to see. You can even try wireframe. That might be easier to see. That way the color doesn't interfere. And now I'm going to use my up arrow key to constrain to blue, and I need to lock it into this point like that. Zoom that out. Go back to the shaded with texture mode. Click on the select, click off of the window, and click off of it again because these are two groups nested there. And then turn off X-ray, and that's the opening. I also know that I have a line right down the middle. I need to address that right now. And it's just the frame that I'm concerned with. I'm going to double click my group. And now I need to double click on the frame because these are two nested groups. And now I really want to isolate that frame. So I'm going to come over here to my view, component edit, hide rest of model. I know that the frame sits right here in the middle and it's 2 inches. So similar to what I did in AutoCAD, I'm going to draw myself a line. Let it find the midpoint. And I may have gone too far, so I'll go back this way. There's the midpoint. I click on that, and I'd like to go to the midpoint across in this direction. And then I'm going to type M. And I want that line, so I'm going to move it from that midpoint over. I prefer to make a copy of it. That way I know what direction it's going. So I'm going to tap the Control key, and I'd like to bring it over in this direction 1 inch. So I type 1 and then Enter. And now I'd like to take the line again from that midpoint and move it in this direction. And again, tap the Control key because I want to make sure that it's offsetting. And I say offset even though I'm using move, but I want to make sure that it's moving away from the center. So in this direction, 1, Enter. And then I'll type E and I'll erase this line. And then I'll type P for push pull that surface, and I take it straight up. And I take it to the underside here. And when I see that it's going to snap to that edge, I click. And then I prefer to erase lines that I no longer need. So I'm going to type E, erase this line, and I know it's also on the opposite side, so I'll erase that. Take a good look at it. That's what I'd like to see. Tap my space bar, click off of that frame. The glass is still there. It's one single piece of glass going through my frame, and that's fine. Click off of that, and I have my glass in place. And maybe now would be a good time for me to actually fix the height of my building. I'm going to take my elevation, and I'm going to bring it back in. It's selected. I type M. I'll pick from any point on the screen like this. And I know that I want it to constrain to green axis. To make sure that it does, I tap my left arrow key and I bring it in. And I remember it was 20 feet. In line now. And now let me fix the roof. Spacebar to get my select tool. Double click my building. Go to the view, component edit, turn off hide rest of model. I want to see it. And then I'm going to come in here and type P to push pull my building from here and then bring it straight down so that it is at the same height as my roof. And I'm just orbiting to get the right angle like this. It still wants to move up and down, wants to lock in right there. And sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to let it lock in. I'll go ahead and give it a click, and then I'll do it again. Click on it and bring it down. And now it's locking into that endpoint. I was going to actually take it all the way over here so it would lock into the endpoint there. It was already doing that for me. So I'll click it, and that's it. Tap the space bar, click off of the group. And now I have it at the right height. Time to put in my door. To put the door in, here's what I'm going to do. Because the door is actually set back a little bit more, this actually works to my advantage. I'm going to draw another rectangle. And I want to make sure that this rectangle is on the face of the door. I know that it has to align to the green axis. So I'm going to use my left arrow key, and that's going to force it to be on the green axis. I click on this endpoint, and then I click right here, and then I type P to push pull it all the way through. And let's see if it'll go through. I'm going to keep going, keep going. There we go. Like that. Tap the space bar, triple click, right click, make a group. Looking at my default tray under the entity info, it gives me a volume. Therefore, I know it is a solid. I'll be able to use the solid tools on it. Clicking off of it, then going to my solid tools, selecting subtract. And when I subtract, select the first solid. This is the one that's going to go away. So I pick this one. And then I pick the second solid, which is my building. And there's the opening. I'm going to be quick with my door. I will click off of my solid just by clicking out here. That makes the selection go away. And if it doesn't, go ahead and click on the select tool and then make sure that you are clicked off of it. Now I'd like to put in my door frame. I don't need to see my building right now, so I'm going to right click that and hide it and focus on my door right here. Also, while I've been drawing, I have not paid attention to what tag I am using. So I'm scrolling down and I'm going to expand this a little bit. And I'm trying to see which one it is. And here's the pencil tool, and it's showing me that that's the current tag that I'm using. Well, let's see. If I turn that off, nope, can't hide the current tag. So that means it is the one I'm using. So that helps me to know that I'm on the proper tag. Just wanted to double check that and keep that in mind. I'll go ahead and continue with my door here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a rectangle from this endpoint over to this one. I'm going to offset that rectangle 2 inches. Then I'm going to my select tool. I pick that surface and delete it. And now I'm going to type P for push pull this surface through, let me orbit to that face. So it locked in. And then I want to give my frame just a little bit of depth. So I'm going to click on it here, bring it out by, let's say, 1/2 inch. So 0.5 and then enter. Tap my spacebar, brings back my select tool, triple click the frame, right click it, make a group. Zoom out. And yes, I do seem to have a frame along the bottom. I did this on purpose. Watch what I'm going to do now. Double click my group. I'm going to click on View, Component Edit to hide the rest of the model, just so I can focus on this. And then I'm going to type P for press pull, click on that surface, and click right here to select that face. And now it's gone away. And I simply type E and erase this line and that line. Spacebar brings back my select tool, click off of the frame, and there it is. And of course, it's a group. I need to make sure over on my entity info, it's on the 3D window layer. Great. I want to make sure that it has the same material as my door frames. So just in case this isn't the correct color, I'm coming over to my materials. I'm going to sample the paint, click on the frame, and then apply it to the door frame. And now I want the door. So I'll click on the select tool, click off of the frame, and then draw the door. So it's a rectangle from this endpoint over to this endpoint. And I have to make sure it snaps to it. I have to make sure it's straight. Let's see. It is on that endpoint. Great. And then I pick this endpoint. That door thickness is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to type P for press pull, click on it, bring it forward, 1.5, enter. Spacebar for my select tool, triple click, right click, make a group. And now I want to give my door a color. And I can have it match the doors on the inside. Back to my sample paint icon in my materials window. Sample this paint and then apply it to that door. And now I want to move the door into position. And there's a lot of information on my screen right now. So let's see. If I turn off my walls layer, but that's actually the walls from my plan, my AutoCAD drawing. So that's not going to work. I need to turn off my 3D walls and my 3D base. And then I'll come over here from the underside, and I'm going to move the door from that midpoint over to this midpoint. And it could be snapping to the midpoint of the drawing file, the line, and it might be snapping to the midpoint of my frame. But in this case, to me, it doesn't really matter that much because I simply want the door set back to give it the effect. So I'm going to come over here, and then I will turn on the 3D base, also turn on the 3D walls, and it's starting to take shape. Oh, I just noticed when I moved my entire building, the wall height down, it created this interesting effect here. So let me fix that now before I forget. So I'll give this a double click. And then I'm going to type P and bring this down and just let it line up there. And I'll go ahead and click E for erase if I want that to come out, or I can go ahead and click on it again and maybe give myself a soffit that's 6 inches or 8 inches or a foot. And if I make it a foot, I know that I'm down to 7 feet in terms of head height there. And maybe I'll leave it at 6 inches for now, just so it has some kind of a separation there. I just saw that and I figured I'd fix it right away. There is the sliding door on this side that I need to drop in. I'm going to bring back the lines. Let's see, do I have them off? No, they're actually still there from my drawing file. I'll go into X-ray mode here to take a look at that. There is the sliding glass door opening. Using that as my guide, I'll go ahead and draw the opening. And I think what I'm going to do is draw a rectangle on the ground. Let me go ahead and click on the rectangle tool, come over here. And sometimes you just need to orbit a little bit. The material is interfering with me, so I'm going to switch this over to shaded, easier to see. And I'll go ahead and draw in my rectangle. I'll start here, and I know I can see that it wants to draw it on the face here of the wall. So I'm going to use my up arrow key for blue, and it'll constrain to blue. And now I know that it's drawing it on the ground. I'll do this, and then I'll type P for push pull on that surface, and I'll bring it up. Wants to snap to other parts of my file there. And what I'm going to do is line it up with my door frame. Line it up right there. Use my space bar, triple click this, right click it, make a group. Turn off that X-ray mode. Let's see what I've got. So I have a solid within a solid. Just to avoid any kind of an issue that might come up, I actually want to edit this solid for 1 second. So let me see if I can give it a double click. There we go. And I'm going to type P for push pull. I'm going to bring this face out, that surface, I mean, and then take this one, bring it out a bit too like that. And then use my select tool and click off of it. Now I'm definitely sure that it's going through the wall. This is guaranteeing me the fact that it will remove one solid from the other. Solid tools, I go to subtract, select the first solid. This is the one that I want to go away. So I select the first one. And now I need to select the second, which would be this one here. And here we go again. For some reason, it is not a solid. Fascinating how that has changed. So let me tap the escape key, space bar, click off of it, select my solid, and all of a sudden, it's changed. Double click it again. This is all I have, and I don't know. Perhaps it's this part up here that's affecting it. I'm not sure. Let me go ahead and type E for erase and just click and drag over the 2 lines. And now look at what happens over here. It's lost that surface. So I'll go ahead and draw a line from this endpoint to that endpoint. That should close it up, which it did, and that's great. It also generated a surface over here. So let me type E. No, that's not going to erase the surface. Let me use the space bar. Click on that surface. Oh, interesting that it actually put the surface all the way through, that there's no separation. And it could be that I fixed this part. That might be doing something. So here's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to click on erase and erase this part of the model. I can always bring it back if needed, but I want to see if that's the issue. And I'll tap my space bar, select that surface, delete it. Everything goes away. Let me try this again and draw another line. And this time I'll just pick a line from this endpoint over to that one. Has filled it in. And now if I use my space bar and I click on this surface, there seems to be some issue going on. I'm pretty sure it had something to do with me changing this soffit area, but I want to see if this will still work as a solid for me. So let me click off of it, click on it. Nope, it's not going to do it. So there's something really interesting going on here with my set of walls, and I need to resolve this. So I'm going to troubleshoot it right now. And I think I'm going to double click on it. What I'm going to do is draw a rectangle here. I'm going to draw a rectangle here, another one, and then over here. And notice how I'm tracing. I'll draw a line starting at this point, take it over. I see that it's aligning, and it looks like that did the trick, but I'm still going to finish this off. Spacebar, click on the surface. We're in good shape here. Tap the delete key. Click on that surface, delete. This surface, delete. And then one more surface, delete. Now I click off of my group there, click on it. And now I have a volume. That's what I need to have. I'm glad this is happening now to me, because you can see just how sensitive SketchUp can be. Here I go, giving this a try again. Click on subtract. My first solid is this one, and my second solid is this one. And there we go, all taken care of. And then from here, I'm going to begin by drawing the frame, similar to the way I did the frame for my door. I go to my select tool, draw a rectangle from one corner to another. I will now offset that a distance of 2 inches. I will click on my select tool, click on that surface and delete it. And then I'm going to pull this back. And I'd like to see where it's going. So I'm going to flip around and click right here. That looks good. And if I want to, click on this surface, pull it out 1/2 inch. Tap my space bar, triple click, right click, make group. And I'd like to give it a material now. So I'm going over to my materials on the sample paint, click on this frame and apply to that one. Now, a sliding glass door does typically have a threshold along the bottom. It has some thickness to it. Now, if you want, you can leave it like this, or you can remove it and treat it like a regular door over here. Or you can go ahead and just make that a little bit thinner. You can go to the select tool, double click the frame. And I know that it's 2 inches. So I'm just going to type P. I'm going to take this surface. I'm just going to bring it down 1 inch. So I type 1 and enter. And then if you really want to make it look like a threshold, then here's what you could do. Come over to your materials. I'll look at metal. Under the metal, I'll pick this aluminum and I'll just give it that material on that surface. And then I'd like it on the other surface. So I'm going to type L and draw a line that goes straight down from here to there. come over to this side, draw a line from here straight down, go back to my aluminum material, place it, come around to the other side, and do the same thing here, where I draw a line straight down, line straight down, click on the aluminum material and apply it. Go to my select tool, click off of my frame, my building gets in the way, orbit, and take a look at it. I need to add the doors. So let me go to the X-ray mode, and you can see the doors there. And I was careful when I drew the doors, and I made sure that they would overlap. I need to draw that rectangle and then extrude it, or rather push-pull it up. And the minute I do one, then the other one is going to be the same. So I'll begin by drawing that rectangle. In this X-ray mode, I'll go to rectangle, and I'm going to do my best to zoom in here and trace that endpoint of the drawing file. Come over here and take it right there. Now I drew something. Let's see if this is going to work. I type P for press pull. Yes. Click on it, take it up. And I'd like to have it touch that endpoint, or at least be constrained to it. So I'll click, and there's the frame. It's still touching the bottom. I haven't forgotten. It actually needs to come up a bit. You see that? I know it's a little tricky to see. Let me turn off X-ray mode so you can see that. It's buried in there. So here's what I'll try to do from the bottom side. Oh, that gets tricky. Let's see. And this is where it helps to have things organized using tags. I'm going to turn off the 3D base. Take a look at this. And it looks like I can now hover and select the surface. Let's see if it'll let me pick it. It does. And I can take it up. You see that? So I'm going to take it up, and I'd like for it to align right there on that endpoint. So I drew the rectangle. Now I need to know how thick that frame is. So just for a moment, I'm going to click on select, go back to the underside here, and just do a quick check on the distance. So I'm going to use the tape measure, measure from this endpoint over 3 inches. So it's a 3-inch frame all the way around. Tap the escape key, tap the space bar, go back to my solid here. I'm going to give it a triple click and then right click to make a group. And now I'm going to double click so I can edit the group. Under view, component edit, I have hide rest of model turned on. So it's isolated this, I can focus on it. Great. So double click. And now I'm going to select, or I'm going to come over here and use offset along any edge, click, and then bring it in a distance of 3 and enter. And then type P and push pull that, or press pull that all the way through to the opposite face. And this time it worked out, and it removes all of that. Spacebar, click off of the object. It's in the right spot. I need to add the glass to it, but let me also give it the material. I go to my eyedropper, selecting this frame and applying that material to it. Now it's time for the glass. Click on the rectangle tool, click on this endpoint, the other endpoint, P, so that I can push pull. And I apologize, I said press pull earlier. That's an AutoCAD command. Just getting my terminology a little mixed up. My apologies. I'll take this face and I'll bring it back 1/2 inch. So 0.5, enter. It's a thin piece of glass. Back to my select tool, triple click, right click, make a group. And I would like to, yep, I'm zooming out and it took me through that wall. Orbit over here. I'm going to find the material that I want, which is the glass. I go to my materials, sample paint, sample this paint, which is the glass, and then apply it to that glass. All right, now orbit around here. I have to get that into position. So I'm going to come over to this corner here, turn on my X-ray mode, and I'm going to move it from midpoint to midpoint. Type M, find that midpoint, there it is, and then move it to that midpoint. Turn off X-ray mode, go to my select tool, and then I have a frame and I have a piece of glass. And I'm going to pick the glass, which I currently have selected, but here, let me start from scratch. So nothing is selected. Click on the glass, hold down my shift key, click the frame, and then right click and make a group. These are now nested. So I have that group, and now it's easy for me to move it. And when I move it over this way and tap the control key, it's going to make a copy. I could give it the exact distance right now. And you know what I should have done? Let me tap the escape key. I want to do this and save a little bit of time. Click this corner of the group. And now as it's going over, make sure I constrain to red and then tap the control key. And then place it right here. And then finally, I'll go to my X-ray mode, and I'd like to move it back. And I'd like to move it the thickness of the frame. So from here, back there. Turn off X-ray mode. And that's my door. It's my sliding glass door. With those changes in place, what I'd like to do now, let me click on my select tool. I'd like to bring all the information back. So I'm looking and I'm going to turn on my 3D base. Everything else is on my 3D roof. And it may not be the correct roof at the moment, but it's fine. I can always come back and make some corrections. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So File, Save. And I'll be able to use it in my site. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to now go over to File and select Open. There's my site. I'm going to open it. And now I can select this model, and you'll see that it's telling me it's a component. I can right-click it, and I can reload it. It wants to know where can I reload it from. So it's pointing me to the directory. I simply click on it, and then I click Open. And there's the update. It's very similar to external references. I can keep the information separate, and then all I'm doing is linking the information from one file to another.